Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. Live. That's right, everybody. Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups, and this is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and I was a little bit behind today, so we're doing it live again because I didn't want you to have to wait till the middle of the night or early in the morning, plus I didn't want to stay up all night making the video. However, we have read the comics. We're going to be talking about it. We always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week: All Against All, issue number 3. Yet again, All Against All makes a pick of the week, making it 3 for 3. This is written by Alex Paknadel, with artwork by Casper Wingard and lettering by Hassan Otsman El Howe. I absolutely love this book. It's a very interesting story about a species of aliens that go from planet to planet, right? And they harvest the biomechanics, the biology of the predators, right, of that world. They somehow can use these to form bodies for them because they're like these little jellyfish people, right? There's a lot of interesting things going on, a lot of stuff about being explored about human nature, a lot of stuff being explored about nature versus nurture and stuff like that. And it kind of flips the script on the whole idea of like an alien on board a spaceship with a bunch of humans and the aliens like a monster. What if we flip that and the humans the monster? But there's a lot of interesting twists and turns here and a lot of philosophical dives that I really, really love. Alex Paknadel is an incredibly intelligent writer, a very capable writer. I think he does an absolute fantastic job with this script. I think the artwork by Casper Wingard is some of the best I've ever seen from Did y'all hear a pop? That light kind of halfway blew. That's interesting. That scared the hell out of me. Anyway, something happened. All right, we're going to turn that light off as soon as possible. That was interesting. All Against All is the pick of the week. Love the artwork. Super freaking cool. All right. Then we got Monarch. This is a new one from Image Comics. This is written by Rodney Barnes and Alex Lins on the artwork. It's all right. It's basically about an alien invasion and these kids in Compton, how they deal with it. And there's some interesting tough stuff that gets developed in here, but it doesn't really ever capture me. The artwork is all right. It's decent, but it doesn't really wow me. The story didn't really super grab me. I appreciate the context. I appreciate the characters, but there was just something missing that I just wasn't quite into. Then we got Little Monsters here with issue number 10. This was a fantastic issue of Little Monsters. Absolutely blew my mind. Jeff Lemire's going back a little bit and really explaining where these vampire kids come from, because this is a book about vampire kids out there on their own. They've been told these rules. They've been left by the adult vampires for who knows how long. They've been left these rules. Don't feed on humans, all this kind of stuff. The kids start finding out they can feed on humans and it gives them powers, right? But it's kind of split the kids in the midst of it, right? In this issue, we get the full explanation on what actually happened, and I really, really liked it. The artwork by Dustin Nguyen is absolutely freaking fantastic. He's using this like digital duo shade thing that I absolutely am astonished by. Little Monsters continues to pop just like that light up there. Bloodstained Teeth is here with issue number 9. It was an all right issue. It felt a bit rushed, felt a bit clunky, felt like there was a lot going on, but the artwork still stood up for me. The artwork is one of my favorite things about this book, especially that coloring by Heather Moore. Hassan Otsman El Howe also on the lettering there, and he's doing a fantastic job, as he usually does. One of the best letterers in the business. Christian Ward is writing this story. It's about a vampire. A world of, I smell it, the world of vampires in which the High Council, if you will, doesn't want anybody to turn humans into vampires, like half-bloods, right? Well, this one dude's been doing it. He's a vampire for hire. He now has 1 month to kill every vampire that he ever turned, right? And so that's what's going on. We're nearing the conclusion of this story. At least that's what it feels like. But what I love about it is the artwork is very like realistic, and it could feel stiff and stagnant because of it, but the coloring gives it that pop. I really like that book. Man, that smells gnarly. Nothing's on fire. but that smells gnarly. I'm very glad that happened live for some reason. Then we got Spawn, issue 338. This is the cover of the week. I have been enamored, absolutely enamored with the David Mack Spawn cover. So it gets my cover of the week, but it's also a really cool issue. It's one of those issues where it kind of goes back and explains some things, fills in some of those gaps, in particular about the green world and Nyx and her involvement with everything that's going on with Spawn. So I actually found this issue of Spawn to be not just enjoyable, but very beneficial, because at times Spawn has so much going on and it takes so long for certain things to develop that sometimes we need these refreshers. Sometimes we need to know where we were, why we were where we were, and how that has affected where we're going. And that was this kind of issue of Spawn, and I love that David Mack cover. That's my cover of the week. Let's jump over to Marvel, but before that,
hey there, Dynamite fans. Come join us here at The Experience this Monday, February 13th at 6 p.m. Eastern. It's our usual time. The usual. We're going to have commission cover art, Dynamite, Marvel, DC, all of your favorites and more. And I'm sure we're going to talk about some fun stuff too. So remember, it's The Experience, Monday, February 13th, 6 p.m. Eastern. Can't wait to see you.
All right, and Marvel Comics, we're going to kick it off with Red Goblin issue number 1. This is from Alex Packnadell, who is the writer of All Against All. One of my favorite writers here. This is one of his first major Marvel works, if not his first Marvel work, period. Jan Bazladua is the artist, and I loved this book. Alex did not let me down on this one. So little Normie, the grandson of Norman Osborn, now has his own symbiote, and he is the Red Goblin. It's a young symbiote, so he's trying to deal with that. He's trying to figure out what it means to be a hero in the midst of this horrible family legacy. So, like, in the very beginning, Alex is talking in the script about how, like, families like quicksand, and just when you think you're escaping, it's dragging you back in. This is a better exploration of the Osborn legacy than what we're getting in Gold Goblin, which also has an issue out this week, but I decided just to kind of drop it. Didn't really like it, but Alex's personification, his characterization of Norman Osborn here in Red Goblin is my favorite in this new Norman being a good guy kind of guy, right? But I actually really was invested into the character of Normie. I was kind of worried. I don't know so much about wanting to read a book about a kid, symbiote, carnage, goblin type thing, but it absolutely worked for me. I liked the artwork, and the story had a nice flow to it, and it had a good bit of subtext. I really enjoyed Red Goblin. Then we got Bishop War College, issue number 1. Oh man, I did not like this book. I am a huge fan of Bishop. I was excited to check this out. I've been trying to get back into the world of the X-Men. I liked Exterminators. I didn't mind Sins of Sinister, the opening one-shot. So let me check out this Bishop book. This was just dumb. So Bishop is like a trainer of the X-Men. He's like trying to train these young kids. He's being a hard ass, right? He's just like, it's not, he's just being a hard ass, right? And they're like, oh, you're bullying these kids and this and that. And it was just so clunky. It was just so silly. It was just so dumb, in my opinion. And the artwork just could not get behind that. So that one was definitely not for me. But speaking of Sins of Sinister, we have Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants. This one's all right. It's written by Al Ewing with artwork by Medina. Is it Paco Medina? The artwork's pretty nice. I like the artwork and I like the story. I like this idea of Sins of Sinister. It's basically an Age of Apocalypse type thing where Sinister has started cloning a bunch of versions of himself, and he's used his bits of genetic material so every time like a mutant's resurrected, they get a little bit of Sinister with them, and it's wrecked the future, and now Sinister no longer has access to his cloned Moiras to like undo it or something like that. But it's an alternate timeline in a way, but it is the real timeline, but we know it's going to get undone. But that being said, I actually liked this issue. I liked this world that's being built. Storm is a part of a rebellion, right? She's one of those mutants that hasn't been turned by Sinister, and everything has gone wrong. It's bleak, it's dour, it's like Age of Apocalypse, but it's plugged into what's going on in the X-Men books. So I actually thought it was pretty decent for a first issue of this little mini-series, and it's kind of replacing X-Men Red for the time being, I think is what's going on there. Then we got Daredevil, issue number 8. Loved this issue of Daredevil. One of my favorites since this relaunch has happened. This is a big battle between Daredevil and Punisher, the hand and the fist, and I loved it. The artwork's by Marco Cicchetto and Matthew Wilson. It's not as clean as it could be, but it has some giant, big, epic moments. There's a big dragon, there's ninjas fighting ninjas, there's Daredevil and Punisher both out on the total opposite extremes, but on the same, or on the total opposite sides of the same coin, something like that. They're all going to extremities. I really liked it. It really ratchets up the drama, really amps up that action. I thought Daredevil was absolutely fantastic. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man issue number 19. I'm glad Dark Web is over. Now we can get back to our regularly scheduled program over at Amazing Spider-Man, but not quite. This is a fill-in issue, and it's going to lead into another fill-in issue before Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. come back to kind of tell us the story of what went wrong with Mary Jane and Peter's relationship and all that, right? So in this one, Joe Kelly's coming in as a guest writer. The Dotsons are in as guest artists. And it's telling us this really interesting story of like Black Cat and Peter Parker going off for the weekend for like to get away, maybe take their relationship to the next level. And it's got some nice little bits in the beginning. And then towards the end, though, when it kind of gets into the story, it just gets a little bit overly silly and it didn't quite capture me. Now, I am a fan of the Dotsons artwork, but this felt a bit rushed, not quite as clean as I wanted or expected it to. So it was an all right filler issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Then we got Joe Fixit issue number 2. I liked the first issue enough. I thought the artwork was decently solid. And I thought that Peter David was doing a good, consistent job revisiting those days of when Hulk turned gray and became a bouncer in Las Vegas, went by the name of Joe Fixit, right? So we're in that era in Vegas. Spider-Man's involved, Kingpin's involved. The first issue had some decent setup, but the second issue just pretty dumb. There's some moments between certain characters that just don't work for me, and it kind of falls flat and feels kind of just dumb. So I just did not really like it. So Joe Fixit number 2, not quite for me. Let's jump over to DC where we got Static, Shadows of Dakota number 1. This is basically season 2 of Static. Now, I never finished season 1 of Static. I think I only read like the first 2 or 3 issues. I thought it was all right, but it just kind of, I don't know, something got muddied in there, and I just never continued following it. That being said, I was able to jump into the first part of season 2 with ease. It's got this nice recap in the beginning. I read that. I jumped right in. I thought that the artwork was very dynamic. I thought the story was cool. I thought its script had a really great flow to it, and it had a lot of excitement and energy. I thought it was a really fun book, and it makes me want to go back and get the original issues for season 1 or the trade paperback or hardcover or whatever it is and check it out, because this was a cool world. I like the use of the character, and I like this sense of movement and electricity in this book. Really, really won me over. Then we got Lazarus Planet Next Evolution issue number 1. These are one-shot comics. They've been kind of inconsistent for me. This was more of an up issue for me. It's got a Rom V Red Hood story that introduces these new characters, I think called the Vigil. Yeah, the Vigil. This was actually a really cool story. Ron V knows how to write a story. And these characters, the Vigil, he just announced on Twitter today that they're going to be developed upon coming up this year in the pages of Marvel Comics. Then you got a really nice flatline story that I did enjoy. And then the other stories are just okay. Let's see. There's one with Amanda Waller. I did not really understand what was going on there. Then there's a Red Canary story with Sideways or Sidekick. It's Sideways. Yeah, and it was just all right. So half of this I thought was really strong, and half of it was just okay. Then we got Batman with issue 132. I like what Chip Zdarsky did with the Failsafe arc. I think a lot of that has to do with Jorge Jimenez's artwork. I love that artwork. Not as much of a fan of Mike Hawthorne. I mean, he's all right. He's a solid artist, but he just doesn't bring a level of kinetic vibe that Jorge Jimenez does. I really hope he comes back to the pages of this book. Plus the idea that Batman's now been shunted off into a parallel world, so it's like being reintroduced to Gotham and the same cast of characters from Gotham, but they're all different just slightly because it's a parallel universe. It doesn't have a lot of novelty anymore, especially in the DC universe. If you're going to do something like this, give us something else, worlds, let us invest into it, but just as like, oh, Batman's a fish out of water. Batman's been through so many multiple parallel dimensions and stuff like that. It just doesn't have that same novelty that it used to. I mean, I've been reading these things for a long time. If you're newer, maybe this is something you're into, but the biggest problem I have with this book right now is I think the art has taken a major step down. Then we got Poison Ivy is here with issue number 9. This is a self-contained issue by G. Willow Wilson that I really liked. I thought it was one of the better issues of this series so far. I've been enjoying this series. At first, I was kind of taken aback that it was trying to have this line a little bit between Poison Ivy being like kind of like relatable, but at the same time still very evil and a killer, and They've been able to thread that line really well in this series, and this issue is focused on the relationship between Pamela and Harleen, right? So it's Harley and it's Poison Ivy back together again. Harley comes to visit Poison Ivy. She's been through a lot. They got a lot to catch up on, and it was a nice, sweet, charming, romantic issue that I rather enjoyed. So Poison Ivy number 9, I thought that was pretty good. Then we got The Flash 792, the next part of the 1 Minute War. I'm really liking Flash. It's a very consistent book. Jeremy Adams has been doing a great job with this one. And the 1 Minute War is about this alien race coming in to invade Earth. And the way that they invade and conquer planets is they move at super speed. They somehow have weaponized the Speed Force, right? So literally they can come and within a minute strip this planet of everything they want, kill all the people, completely take it over. But when they come to Earth, they got the Flash family there. So this is actually being able to highlight a lot of the Flash family. The only problem is there was a pretty heavy moment that happened in the last issue or two, and they're treating it heavy, but not quite as heavy as they should, and its placement in the story didn't have as much impact, so you know it's going to be undone in some kind of way. That being said, The Flash was actually pretty solid again this week. Then we got Batman and the Joker, The Deadly Duo, issue number 4. Mark Silvestri doing a great job with the artwork here. There is something about the colors pages. I like them still, and I think he's doing amazing work, but when you take a look in the back and they show you some of the black and white artwork, let's see if they have, they have that exact page I just showed you. So there it is in color, and it's nice, but look at that in black and white. That's way more impressive to me. I really hope we get this book in a black and white edition, like for hardcover or something like that. But Mark Silvestri's doing a great job with the artwork. Story's all right. It's a typical run-of-the-mill Batman story. This one at least feels a little bit more self-contained. It was nice. The basic premise of this is that Harley and Gordon are kidnapped. Batman and Joker are forced to team up together and find out what's going on. So story-wise, pretty weak. However, the artwork, super, super solid. Then we got Gotham City Year 1, number 5, the penultimate issue of Gotham City Year 1, a book I've been liking, but Tom King can be overly verbose at times, and this is an incredibly exposition-heavy issue. There have been some major reveals over the last couple issues. In fact, issue 3 of this was absolutely phenomenal. Now, the artwork is great. Phil Hester's doing a great job. He's inked by Eric Bapstor. Jordi Belair on the coloring. The artwork is super solid. I really like this monochromatic kind of vibe to it that Jordi's bringing with those colors. It really works and makes certain things really pop. However, because this is an exposition-y issue kind of revealing all the in-between stuff about all those big reveals over the last couple issues, it's telling us what's going on, and it's nothing but exposition. And because Tom King is already an overly verbose writer at times, this one really needed to be edited down. There are moments in this book where I was like, how many more pages? This is dull. It was getting a little dull for me, and that's a shame because that book has been pretty good. A new one from Boom Studios, we got Harrower, number 1. This is from Justin Jordan and Bram Revel. This one was all right. So it's about this town in which there's this being or this entity or this person named the Harrower. He's kind of like a serial killer, like a Jason type character, something like that. This town's kind of haunted by him. It's Halloween night. There's a group of kids trying to go out. At first, I didn't quite get into it, but by the end of this book, it did hook me. I do like the artwork. I do think the coloring is just a little bit too much the same, so it's hard. It kind of gets muddy, the background and the foreground. It kind of gets muddy, but in other moments, it really pops pretty well for me. So the color palette is interesting, but I don't know if it's the most effective. As far as the story goes, it felt very typical all the way through, but by the end of it, I did really enjoy it, and it had me want to come back for another one because there's a nice twist there. So I thought that was all right. From Sumerian, we have How I Became a Shoplifter, issue number 1. This is written and directed and created by Tom Brayfogle with a lot of artists. Daniel Hilliard, who we know from Plush, Jimmy Kukach, Gabriel Falzoni, Jordi Perez. I really liked this book. I really did like this book. So it's a bunch of small stories about these two kids growing up in the 90s, and I don't know, they're just kind of losers. They're just trying to make their way, and it's how they became shoplifters, right? So they've been getting into trouble. There's a bunch of different artists, a bunch of different little stories. They all not necessarily interconnect, but they are all telling the story of these two kids and their friendships. There's a really hilarious one where they're trying to impress these two girls. and they're like, well, can you get us some weed? So they go to this dude's house, but the only way to get in with this dude and get the best weed is to act like you're a juggalo, that you're really into ICP. So like, that's a fun little bit. All kinds of really great, zany, absurd, fun, ridiculous stuff. So if you got nostalgia for the 90s in particular, if you like things that are a little bit crude, a little bit rude, a little bit in your face when they need to be, but not too heavy, definitely check out How I Became a Shoplifter. That one was really, really, really fun. Thought that was good. Then we got The Exiled, issue number 1 from Whatnot Comics. Whatnot Publishing, by the way, if you want to get $15 in store credit over at Whatnot, you can use the code, or my invite code is whatnot.com/invite/the Rockin' Robbie. That's for new users only. Anyway, they got a new comic out that's co-created by Wesley Snipes, The Exiled. I was excited to check this one out. I did not like this book. I did not like this book at all. It's basically just trying to recapture that magic of Wesley Snipes as Blade in a different but still similar story. Yeah, it's gory, it's violent, but it is very pedestrian in the way that it's written. It is just, it's I don't even know how to describe it. It feels very amateurish, right? It feels very amateurish. And if it was like some kind of black and white, super gritty, ultra violent thing just filled to the brim with textured screen tone from the 80s, I might like it. But this book is taking itself a little bit too seriously for what it's doing. So I was not really digging on that one. Space Job, a new one from Dark Horse Comics. Almost didn't read this one just because I was like, this looks boring. It looks dull. Doesn't seem like anything. I mean, so it's okay. So it seems like Star Trek, but like a more blue collar, mundane kind of way to go about it. And it just looked boring, didn't look exciting, but I read it and I'm glad I did because I found this rather amusing. And that's what it is. It's the world of Star Trek, but way more blue collar, way more mundane, way more boring, way more inverting your expectations on what it should be. And I actually liked the book. It had a nice sense of humor about it. It's got this nice story thing that it's doing where it leads you on with one character and then shifts focus on the story. And I thought that the way that was handled was actually pretty decent. So I'm not saying this book's going to blow you away. If you want to take a chance on something this week, I would recommend How I Became a Shoplifter. But if space opera is your thing and you want to see a more mundane, The Office type version of it, definitely Space Job was pretty decent. Then we got Spy Superb, issue number 2. This is the smell of the week. Seriously, this book smells so freaking amazing. So it's Matt Kent, so he's got all kinds of goodies in here, like great artwork, a great cool story, great cover, extra stories in the back. Everything matters. Every bit is telling something. Every bit is doing something. I really like this book. The idea is that there's this legendary spy superb out there, right? And everybody, every nation just knows that there's this one badass spy that they can never catch. And the reason why they do that is because this spy agency just gets people manipulated in some kind of social circumstance to do their work for them so they don't even know they're a spy. But one of them maybe is too good of a dude, tries to return a phone anyway. He's being hunted down. Everybody thinks he's this badass spy. One of them kind of figures out what's going on. It's a really quirky, interesting type story, and I love the way Matt Kent packages his comics, the way he tells the story. I love his artwork. There's some really great moments in here, and little moments that happen in the book, and then say an extra story at the end, you see a little bit different. And once again, smell of the week for Spy Superb. That's absolutely fantastic. Then we got Koshki in Hell, issue number 2 from Mike Mignola and Dark Horse Comics, Ben Stenbeck. And when Ben Stenbeck and Mike Mignola are together, I am definitely on board because it's the most Mignola classic Hellboy feeling type stuff that we get. This picks up directly off of stuff left dangling from Hellboy in Hell and the last Koshki, the Deathless book or whatever. I really like the atmosphere. I really like the mood. And there's a lot of Mignola-verse, Hellboyish type stories that come out lately that don't quite have the oomph and the punch. This one really does. So even if you're wary of the Mignola-verse right now, definitely check out Koshki in Hell because I thought that was cool. And then from Dynamite Comics, we have Mad Balls versus the Garbage Pail Kids, Time Again, Slime Again. I just love this book. I love it so much. Jason Crosby is a great artist, a perfect artist for this book. You got the Mad Balls and the Garbage Pail Kids at war, and the Mad Balls versus Garbage Pail Kid comic was just gigantic moronic splendor to begin with. And now in this one, excuse me, in this one, they go back in time and they tell us like a prehistoric version of the story that I found very charming and cute. And then they do this bit where it's like the Iliad, right? And they got the Trojan Madball that they're trying to give. So it's like throughout history, it's the Madballs versus the Garbage Pail Kids through the context of different lenses or historical periods and stuff like that. So I have a lot of fun with that. If you have nostalgia for those properties, you definitely want to check that out. So that's what I read. So let's recap. Madballs versus Garbage Pail Kid. Really dumb fun, nostalgia-driven fun. Koshki in Hell, a really great follow-up to Hellboy in Hell. And if you like the Mignola stuff, it has more of that appropriate atmosphere. Spy Superb is superb. And the smell of the week. I'm telling y'all, Space Job was way better than I thought it would be. The Exiled was way worse than I thought it would be. How I Became a Shoplifter was really good fun, especially if you have 90s nostalgia. Harrower, a little bit boring at first, coloring maybe a little bit muddy at times, but it does really bring it together by the end. Gotham City Year One, just too exposition-y, too verbose, too wordy. Batman and the Joker, deadly duo. Great artwork, story's just kind of okay. Flash, very consistent, very solid. Poison Ivy, really like this one. Charming romantic issue. Then we got Batman, just been there, done that. Kind of not fun and not very exciting in the artwork. Lazarus Planet, half of it was pretty decent. Half of it was just okay. Static, though, really blew me away. Very electrical issue. And yeah, pun intended. Joe Fix-It just ain't working for me. Amazing Spider-Man, it's a filler issue, so it's okay, but it kind of falls apart at the end, gets overly silly. Daredevil was awesome. Big Punisher versus Daredevil, hand versus fist action. Storm of the Brotherhood of Mutants for the Sins of Sinister. Intriguing. But Bishop War College sucked, man. And then we got Red Goblin. Really, really appreciated this book. I was not expecting much out of that, even though I love Alex Packnadell. I was unsure of Normie Osborn in the symbiote. Man, he sold me on that one. Spawn, cover of the week. Really like that issue as well. Bloodstained Teeth, the coloring is my favorite part of that book. Little Monsters, a great issue filling in some of that backstory. Monarch just wasn't quite working for me. And then All Against All, the pick of the week, yet again, 3 for 3. I know it's not for everybody, but it's definitely for me. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments below. We really do appreciate you being here, checking this video out, whether watching it live as we did it tonight or on the replay. Let me know in the comments below. What are you reading? What are you digging? And as usual, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. And yeah, I've been rocking Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop, boom.
Hey there, Dynamite fans. Come join us here at The Experience this Monday, February 13th at 6 p.m. Eastern. It's our usual time. You know, the usual. We're going to have commission cover art, Dynamite, Marvel, DC, all of your favorites and more. And I'm sure we're going to talk about some fun stuff too. So remember, it's The Experience, Monday, February 13th, 6 p.m. Eastern. Can't wait to see you.